Hello, you guys. Welcome to another edition with Crypto News. Today, we're going to be talking about a few different things. Number one on the list is your birth certificate. Next will be the Federal Reserve. Then we'll be talking about your Social Security number. And finally, what all this exactly means to you. So, to get started, it's important to watch this video. Every link to the content is going to be provided in the description in case you want to reference it at a later time. But I'm going to briefly go through these videos for you guys and kind of give you an explaining or an explanation of exactly what this means and how you can use it or why you should even care about this stuff. So let's start off with this one, Jordan Maxwell.
The most severe law in this world is called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. It's the Bible of business on the earth. Uniform Commercial Code. Uniform Commercial Code is based directly on Vatican canon law, on the Roman canon law. Consequently, when a ship pulls into port, it pulls in and stops, and it's called in its berth. The ship is now in its berth. Because it is on the law of the high seas, or commercial maritime, UCC commercial law, rules the seas. So when the ship pulls into its berth, the first thing the captain must do is to present a certificate of manifest to the port authorities, which means that the port authorities need to know how much is on this ship that you're bringing into our country and our economy. How many TVs, how many cars, whatever you're bringing, how much are you bringing into our economy? So you have to have a certificate of manifest of what is the value of your ship here. What are you doing? Consequently, when you are born, you come out of your mother's water. Therefore, you must have a birth certificate, a certificate of manifest, because you are a corporation-owned item. You are a human resource. This goes back to the German Nazi concept that every human coming out of their mother's water must be birthed. And therefore you have to have a certificate, a manifest, to see how much this individual is going to make for us in our new world order. I'm telling you that until you understand the laws, the symbols, the emblems, what these words mean, you're never going to suspect how far gone we really are. Did you know, for instance, that your birth certificate is a security on the stock exchange and the New York stock market? Did you know that? Because if you order your birth certificate, get a new one, order your birth certificate, it only costs you, sometimes it's free. It only costs you a few dollars. Order your birth certificate. On your birth certificate, all birth certificates in this country, on the bottom, it will tell you this is printed on security papers. Do not accept it not on full-color security paper. Then on the right-hand side, you will always have a series of numbers, red numbers, printed on the birth certificate. Those numbers are a security stock exchange number on the World Stock Exchange. You go to any good stock office and ask them, check these numbers in your computer and see how much your stock is worth, your certificate. And they will check it on the New York Stock Exchange and find your birth certificate is a stock on the stock exchange in America. Why? Because you are worth money to the international bank that bought you in 1930. We need to wake up. This is serious stuff.
So that was Jordan Maxwell. He had a lot of key points, but he seemed to miss a few things. Now, he doesn't really tell you why you are on the stock exchange in New York. He doesn't really give that explanation of how that even happened or, what exactly that is. But in essence, it's not really a stock, but it is because it's a trust. And this trust happens to be on the New York Stock Exchange and all these other exchanges as well as people buy and sell. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting because as we continue down the rabbit hole, we're going to find out what exactly is the Federal Reserve, how did the Federal Reserve get started, and what you should know about the Federal Reserve when it comes to your money and if it's actually there. Let's actually see what the Federal Reserve has to say from their website. This video is actually an older video that I found was re-uploaded, so let's take a look at it right now.
And really, we're going to give the history of the Fed as told by the Fed.
You see, this is by the Federal Reserve themselves.
The happy tale on their own website. Are you ready for this? It's great. Here we are. Here it is. Watch this. Quote on their website: after Alexander Hamilton spearheaded a movement advocating the creation of a central bank, the first bank of the United States was established in 1791. You see how great this is? The Fed was started by a founding father. No, it wasn't. No. The first bank isn't the Fed. So what does that have to do with anything? Well, nothing. But they just wanted to throw a founding father's name in there. The bank's charter ran for about 20 years. And because it took about 20 years before Americans realized, hey, that Bank of America thing, that's not working out. They've got way too much power and influence, just like all the other founders said. A proposal to renew it failed. Now back to the happy story from the Fed's website. Quote, the situation deteriorated to such an extent that in 1860, a bill to charter a second bank of the United States was introduced in Congress. The second bank was very much like the first, except bigger, about 3.5 times bigger. It's always that way, isn't it? Anyway, the charter also lasted about 20 years before people went, what are we doing? Americans realized that it wielded too much power and influence, and the proposal to renew it also failed. Then, according to the Fed's website, they got rid of that nasty charter thing and the will of the people. Quote, in 1907, a severe financial panic jolted Wall Street and forced several banks into failure. Many Americans thought their banking structure was sadly out of date and needed major reform. The first draft of the Federal Reserve Act was called the Aldrich Bill because, well, the guy who wrote it was named Aldrich, and it failed. President Taft refused to support it, and you remember he was so fat they had to have a special bathtub for him. Then it underwent some surgery and a readmission as the Glass-Owen Bill, and of course it got a signature from progressive Woodrow Wilson in 1913. Well, that's the Fed's story. Bill was introduced in 1907, and in 1913 it finally came to be. Isn't everything great in sunshine and lollipop world? The Federal Reserve Act wasn't drafted in Congress. It was drafted on a private island off the coast of Georgia in 1910. Here is the island, Jekyll Island. And it was drafted under great secrecy. Jekyll Island was the retreat for billionaires like William Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan. And in 1910, Senator Nelson Aldrich, the Republican whip in the Senate and the chair of the National Monetary Commission, sent his private railroad car to the New Jersey Railroad Station, where he and 5 other men were instructed to come one at a time and everybody pretend they just didn't know each other. Aldrich, who is the guy, remember, he wrote the original bill? He was a business associate of J.P. Morgan. Oh, and the father-in-law to John D. Rockefeller, Jr. So there's no special interest happening there. There was also Abram Piatt Andrew, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, and Frank Vanderlip, representing William Rockefeller, Henry Davidson and Benjamin Strong with J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg. He was a partner at Kuhn, Loeb and Company. He was representing the Rothschild banking family. Oh, he's going to talk about the Rothschilds now. He actually is an interesting character. If you ever saw Little Orphan Annie, Daddy Warbucks was named after Warburg. These are the men that represented 1/4 of the entire wealth of the world. You think we got a problem with wealth now? Those guys, 1/4 of all of the money in the world. The Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Warburgs, the Rothschilds, all in one room. Yeah, but when do they start sacrificing chickens? Well, it doesn't happen. That I'll tell you. These guys were all competitors. According to G. Edward Griffin, who we'll talk to in a minute, They all had come together to form a banking cartel so they didn't have to compete against each other. He says it was like an oil cartel or a sugar cartel, but this cartel actually went into partnership with the government. I mean, how great is that, huh? It's kind of like the drug cartels in Mexico. Wait, I didn't say that out loud, did I? So for more than a week, these men sat around there. And they sat around this big table and they hammered out all the details of what became the Federal Reserve System with 5 objectives. How many of these do you agree with? 1, to stop the growing competition from the nation's newer banks. That doesn't sound good. 2, to obtain a franchise to create money out of nothing for the purpose of lending. That one really doesn't sound good either. 3, to get control of the reserves of all of the banks so the reckless ones wouldn't be exposed to currency drains or bank runs. Oh, that's the charity part. Golly gee, beef, thank you so much. Then, to shift the losses from the bank owners to the taxpayers. It just gets better and better for you and me, doesn't it? No. Again, the answer is no. And then finally, to convince Congress that the purpose was to protect the public. Well, they started the Federal Reserve with no money, just a checkbook. The government could go to the Fed and obtain instant money without having to consult the taxpayer. What a country! Money created out of nothing and then given to the government. It's loaned by the banks to you and me, and then we pay interest on it, and it goes to them. Interest on nothing. Again, the Fed is nothing more than a cartel like OPEC, except it's a money cartel. And this cartel that brought the federal government into a partnership where you and I have to answer to it. And it's only to enforce the rules of the cartel, you know, to bring those into agreement with the federal laws to protect you. It operates under the protection of the federal government, and the government has virtually given a monopoly to create the nation's money supply. There are no elected officials. There's virtually no accountability to anyone. The president doesn't get to say, I'm going to name Glenn Beck as the head of the Fed, which, oh, please. Sarah, when you're in, I'm available. Oh, did I say that one out loud, too? Can't do that. The Fed gives the president a list to choose from. Really? Well, thank you, Chairman Mao. The Fed is privately owned, but by whom? Good question. No one knows. We can't open their books, and we don't know who owns them. Really? Now, here's an interesting spin from the Federal Reserve Board website.
Again, from the Federal Reserve themselves.
Although they're set up like private corporations and member banks hold their stock, the Federal Reserve banks owe their existence to an act of Congress and have a mandate to serve the public. Oh, therefore, they're not really private companies, but rather owned by the citizens of the United States.
So, yes, the Federal Reserve, or the Fed, is admitting that the accounts are owned by the citizens of the United States. Okay, so that's moving along here now. To Social Security cards, banknotes. This is a very interesting video, again, that I'm also going to leave in there. But let's listen to hear what he has to say about this really fast.
This video shall not be construed as legal advice. I am not a licensed attorney and cannot give legal advice. This video is, however, for educational purposes. Today the question is, are Social Security cards banknotes, and what is a banknote? Well, I have the definition of a banknote on the screen, and it is a non-interest bearing promissory note of a Federal Reserve Bank which is payable to the bearer on demand and can be used as cash. This is a type of banknote. They don't always look like that. See where it says note? Now, if we go to the definition of promissory note, just to clarify, it says, a promissory note, sometimes called a note of hand, is written, signed, unconditional, and unsecured. Examples include bank or currency notes. Promissory notes are negotiable, making them a flexible financial agreement. and the format of them. While you can find promissory notes on the internet or through other entities, a promissory note has no formal structure. So, banknotes don't always have to look like this. It can just be a regular piece of paper with IOU pretty much as long as you follow the regulations in the UCC. Now, the question of, is a Social Security card a banknote, can be answered here. And on the screen is Cornell University Law School, once again, and this is the United States Code, Title 42, United States Code, Chapter 7, Subchapter 2, Section 405. And if we scroll down to C, 2G, we will see the Commissioner of the Social Security shall issue a Social Security card to each individual at the time of the issuance of a Social Security account number to such individual. And in the highlighted text, the Social Security card shall be made of banknote paper, just like this.
More good information to know. And now, how does this actually make sense to you guys? How are you actually going to apply this to yourself? That is very key. Now, how Jordan Maxwell was telling you about your social security number, this is your trust account number. Each trust account number is going to be different, and you'll have to look at your birth certificate, or you'll have to order a copy of a birth certificate to find your trust account number. And once you found your trust account number, you need to request a copy of that trust. And how do you get a copy of a trust? This video is going to explain how to get a copy of a trust.
Hi, probate and trust litigation attorney Scott Grossman here. Today I'm answering how to get a copy of a trust. If you are a beneficiary or an heir of somebody who's died, you are entitled to get a copy, a written copy of their trust. Now you have the right to get this if there are two people who created the trust. For instance, if your mom and dad created a trust together, then when both of them have passed away, if you're either named as somebody who's going to inherit property, or if you're simply a child or a grandchild, what the law calls an heir, you are legally entitled to receive a copy of the trust. Most trustees are good about providing copies when people ask for them, but not all trustees are. If the trustee of the trust will not give you a copy of the trust, then you can have your attorney send a written demand for a copy to the trustee. Once your attorney sends that written demand, the trustee has a 60-day period in which to provide a copy of the trust, and they're required to do this. If they don't, then your attorney can file a petition with the probate court and get an order from the court that compels the trustee to provide you with a written copy of the trust.
So that tells you exactly how to get a trust copy. Now, it's important that you get a copy of this trust because you need to verify that you're the beneficiary of the trust, and only way to do that is to get a copy of that. Now, I know that we're all aware that we're pretty sure we are the beneficiary based on the birth certificate. You know, our parents or our mother was the grantor of the trust when they signed their name on the birth certificate. However, the trustee still remains anonymous, as nobody actually physically knows who owns the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve may be the trustee. The trustee may be someone completely different. But once you order a copy of your trust that was made when you were born off of your birth certificate, again, you'll see on a birth certificate the issue date of your birth certificate was the issue date of the trust, which is a different day that you were born on. You'll see that. It's very, very important to note that. And then next, if you are on the trust as the beneficiary, the next step you'll have to do is to file a 1cc1 UCC1, and also create another trust as well for that UCC1. Now, this guy Tex Manson out of California in Glendale, he gives a good example of what it's for, how you do it. He has his own blueprint as far as going forward and creating a UCC1 and how to file it properly. Again, I'm going to leave links in all of the videos that I've referenced here in the description. And I really urge all of you guys to do your own research when it comes to the Federal Reserve, comes to your Social Security number, when it comes to legalese. Start figuring out, what does legalese mean? How do I learn it? Asking questions about your birth certificate. All these things point and add up in the right direction, not for a mystical belief, but for a reason. And you need to figure out what that reason is. For Tex Manson, if you want to go through him, you can give him a call or contact him on his website, thctrust.org. And this guy, he can help you out. Obviously, there's disclaimers saying they're a private organization. He's gone through this path, and this can unlock millions and millions of dollars. Pretty much what this will allow you to do is, when this right here with this statement from the Federal Reserve, is it allows us, the US citizens, once we are, have filed the UCC1 and we have claimed our trust, this allows us as a secured creditor to kind of create money or pay off debt. And that is a requirement if you want to do certain things in your life. And there's a right way or there's a wrong way. And I'm going to tell you this right away, that just using the Federal Reserve numbers with your Social Security number is not the right way to do it. You do have a trust account. Let's get that clear. You for sure have a trust account, but there is an appropriate way that you need to access your trust account. And I've kind of laid out a good avenue on a good starting point of where you guys should start and how to find your trust account and actually how to access it, how to view it, how to verify that you're not just wasting your time, that you're actually going to find something at the end of this tunnel. So I hope this video helped you guys out. I'm probably not going to do a whole lot more as far as the birth certificate, the Federal Reserve, routing, all these kinds of videos, unless everything does pan out the way it's supposed to. But for now, this is what it seems that you guys have to do if you want to do this legit and not get arrested, not go to jail. The number one thing is request a copy of your trust. Make sure you're a beneficiary on that trust. File the UCC1, and then finally, once you've become a citizen that owns yourself and you're not owned by the government and you're on your own accord, then and only then can you amend the trust that is in your name as a beneficiary, so that way you can be the trustor or the trustee as now you become of age and you can handle your own finances and things of that nature. That the average adult, when we think of turning 18 or 21, is when you become of age, but you haven't officially told anyone that you can handle your own things. And this is what these forms and documents will do, is you will declare that you can handle yourself and you can act on your own, and doing so will open the doors to pretty much financial freedom. Now I'm going to order my trust. I'm going to order a copy of it. I'm going to verify it, see if I'm on it as a beneficiary. And if I'm not, then this is just a big ass waste of time. But if I am on that trust, then this is like Pandora's box. So hope you guys enjoy this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what you're up to. Let me know what you have tried, what you know won't work, or what will work. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure this is the right direction to be headed in, and to verify and verify and verify before you do absolutely anything. Alright guys, have a great night.